Dr. Bigler.
Thank you. I'm going to quick hit a couple direct, because I have a chance to directly counter, which is wonderful. First, a note about the science paper. The science paper had very, very strict limits for our words, which was frustrating because we cut dozens and dozens of references. So the failure to cite many, many studies was because they cut them out of our paper and said, you've got 2 pages. So for every study that Dr. Sachs claims shows a benefit, I could show you studies that don't. In fact, a large study just came out that showed that girls take fewer math and science classes in single-sex schools than they do in co-ed schools. A big study by Noguera is coming out on boys, particularly Black and Latino boys, that show no benefits for low-income youth of color attending boys' school. And your point about the Department of Ed being qualitative is right. 2 enormous new meta-analyses will come out in the next year that are quantitative evaluations of the entire literature, and both show no effect of single-sex schooling. So again, you can point to particular pieces of evidence. I want to mention the dodgeball story, which is a common kind of thing I hear. I dealt with a school approached me because they wanted to segregate their PE classes. So this idea of the girls not doing well or wanting to compete when there's boys in the PE class. And so I asked, what was the basis in the problem? And the principal said, the girls have come and asked us to remove the boys from their class. They feel like they don't get a chance to really do things and play hard when the boys are there. And I asked why, and it turns out they said that the boys were saying things like, get your fat butt out of my way, and ooh, your butt jiggles when you run, and they're saying rude things and hogging all the resources, hogging all the spots on the volleyball and saying you can't do it. And so the solution, they said, was to get rid of the boys. Okay, boys are saying sexually harassing things, they're not playing along nicely, they're hogging all the positions and feeling like the girls just quit then. I'm not going to compete, I'm not going to play hard with the boys. They said, let's remove the gender. It is the solution of removing the sex instead of the sexism. And the problem I raised is, had anyone talked to the boys about appropriate behavior in PE? About the point of PE and playing games, about supporting people who aren't as good at the game or are learning the game when you already know it. And they said no. So one important problem is when you just segregate the genders, you do not teach boys how to interact respectfully with girls, and vice versa. You do not teach girls how to interact with boys to speak up for their own rights. Right? They just say, get rid of them. I don't need to tell boys this is offensive or you need to learn to play with me. I'm just secretly asking you, remove them all from my classroom. So I went to the school and talked to the educators, and one of the women raised her hand, a teacher, who said, you know what, I go to a woman's gym. And you know why I go to a women's gym? Because I'm sort of overweight and I'm embarrassed by my body, and I don't like those big muscle guys doing stuff in front of me, and they make me feel ashamed. I'm more comfortable with just women in my little gym with just little middle-weight, overweight, middle-aged women like me. And I said, I understand that capacity. Humans want to say, I'm more comfortable, I can be myself. If I get rid of the people who aren't like me, I feel better. But I said, you are a school. It is your obligation to educate children so that they can get along and benefit from being around others who are different. When you say to girls, just get rid of those boys who are good at sports, and right, you are saying it is best to retreat and not to learn skills from other people. So one of the things we also know is that when 2 groups of people have slightly different skills and interests, when you segregate them, they can't learn those things from each other. And we in fact know the girls who are really good at sports are girls who play sports with boys, who play with their brothers out on the basketball court in the neighborhood and play dodgeball. But also, they play with boys that respect and encourage them. So our goal is to say, segregation is the answer. You don't get rid of them just because the girls say, oh, I'm going to quit and not play when there's boys. You teach the 2 genders to interact and how to get along. So that is our solution. And lastly, when Dr. Sachs starts to say things like, oh, the way you motivate boys to read poetry or girls to do math is totally different. You don't need to just segregate the genders. You need to change the entire mode of teaching to motivate them and get them engaged differently. That is where these terrible stereotypes come in. And where you see teachers, and we have countless examples of this, in girls' classrooms where they have painted the walls pink and girls sit and hold hands and they sit in circles and they don't compete because girls don't like that, and you want to teach them chemistry with baking because, you know, girls love baking, so if you introduce baking, they'll learn chemistry. Okay? That is what the American Civil Liberties Union and the Department of Education rules unconstitutional. You cannot promote stereotyping with your schools. And this is a problem you see over and over and over again when you start to make arguments about how girls are so different from boys. You have to use totally different measures of educating them. My argument would be, if you need to know which kids can't learn when they sit down, their brain shuts off, give them a test. And you will find some girls, so-called brain shuts off, right? In other words, some girls learn better standing up and some boys might learn. Don't use gender. Gender is a blunt, inaccurate, gender stereotypic basis to make decisions about individual children's needs and motivations. So yes, children are motivated by all different kinds of things. It's an individual difference. And what a really good teacher does is say, I'm going to get to know you, each of my students, and I will find out what you like and what motivates you. And I will not make a blunt blanket assumption that because you're a girl, this is going to motivate you, or just because you're a boy, this will motivate you.